As a researcher, do you want to save time, learn of new and relevant research publications, and avoid rejections? You delicately balance your limited time, researching, teaching, and serving your institution. And we can save you time and effort as you seek outlets for publishing your important contributions. USASBE is proud to offer our entrepreneurship education series, Meet the Editors. 15 episodes are already planned with a variety of journals and their editors. Learn how to successfully get published as these editors share trends in academic publications, explain what they are looking for as they shape their journal, and provide you tips on how to successfully get published. There's more. Gain an understanding of their personalities and philosophies as top researchers in their own right. As an entrepreneurship researcher, you want to get published, avoid rejections, and save time. And this series is designed to do just that and more. Together, we will create more entrepreneurs through better research, better teaching, and better practice. Thank you for your passion in advancing entrepreneurship education, and enjoy this episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the USASBE Meet the Editor series. I'm Brittany Garner, Program Director for USASBE, and we would like to thank you for joining us today for this informative deep dive on publishing in Journal of Small Business Strategy. A quick USASBE announcement I would like to make is that we are launching our very own channel where entrepreneurship education materials will be released weekly in what we are calling Bold Entrepreneurship Education Television, or B-Vision. Content created includes tips on how to teach authentically and effectively, interviews with entrepreneurs, deep dives on research being published in EEMP and the Annals of Entrepreneurship Education, and more. Access to the searchable, curated content being released is included with USASBE membership. If you are not a USASBE member, we invite you to join our community of bold entrepreneurship educators. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to help. But this series, the Meet the Editor series, is a free program of USASBE as we seek to further entrepreneurship research and its application in entrepreneurship classrooms and ecosystems. We were challenged at USASBE's 2021 conference by Bill Ollett to create millions of entrepreneurs, and we can all do our part to share opportunities to promote excellent research journals, opportunities like this. So today, I am happy to introduce Bill McDowell of Bradley University and Whitney Peake of Western Kentucky University, representing the Journal of Small Business Strategy. They have an exciting presentation planned, and without further ado, I will hand it over to Whitney and Bill.
Thank you all very much. Thanks, Brittany, for the introduction, and we're excited to be here. I'll just do an introduction of myself and Whitney as well, or she can introduce herself. My name is Bill McDowell. As Brittany mentioned, I am the Executive and Academic Director of the Turner School of Entrepreneurship and Innovation at Bradley University. We are a standalone school of entrepreneurship, as well as the Turner Endowed Chair of Entrepreneurship in the Foster College of Business at Bradley. So I have a couple of different roles. And I'm glad to be here. And I'm going to get the slides going while while Whitney introduces herself.
Good afternoon. I'm Whitney Peake. I am at Western Kentucky University, and I'm the chair for the Department of Management and Entrepreneurship faculty here. And I'm an editorial review board member for the Journal of Small Business Strategy. Up until the past year when I took on the chair role, I've served on as an associate editor as well, and also along with Dennis Barber as one of the managing editors. So we're excited that you're joining us here today to learn more about the journal that Bill has done a tremendous job with over the past several years. And we hope that this will help encourage you to make submissions.
So if you have questions, be sure to ask them anytime along the way. What we are going to do today is basically cover some information about the Journal of Small Business Strategy, and just for just quick brief history, Whitney and I have both been involved since 2015. So I will be honest and say that the journal had gone through some times of neglect up until that point. It had not been put online, and there was just kind of it kind of lulled up until that point. But Whitney and I were on the team that came along to basically help to revitalize the journal, and we're really excited about where the journal is right now and where we're heading as well. Some fantastic momentum, and I believe we have a really solid place in the research opportunities for faculty around the world when it comes to entrepreneurship and small business. Specifically, I love the title. Whitney came up with the title for this session, which is that JSBS is more than just a one and done publication outlet. And what that means is, well, Whitney, would you like to share kind of what you're thinking when you came up with that? And it's fabulous. It's perfect for what we're wanting to do.
Yeah, we like to think about the Journal of Small Business Strategy as an opportunity to publish all throughout your career. So I'll tell you that I started publishing with JSBS, I think, in 2007 as a doctoral student, and then have continued to publish with the journal as my research trajectory grew over time. And so I really do think that this is a place where you can get in, and when you have work that is applicable, it's a great home. And it's also an opportunity to grow along with the journal. So as Bill will share with you in a moment, the journal has really gained a lot more visibility since 2015 when he took over the role as editor-in-chief. And so this is an opportunity to continue growing along with the journal and to grow your body of work.
And I think that's just fabulous, the way that Whitney put that. It's something that you can be involved in and part of growing the journal, not just as an outlet, but also part of your research plan. And just as background, the journal is actually in its 31st year of publication. It was started through the Small Business Institute many years ago, and right now we are in the 31st year of the journal. And if you look at our history and you look at who publishes in the journal, we've had some of the top individuals and some of the key researchers in entrepreneurship publish in the journal over all these multiple years, as well as in small business and strategy. And not only have they published in the past, but they continue to publish. So we still get submissions by some of the best researchers in the nation, and it's fun to look back at where we were and what who all has published in this. I remember one of the early issues had a paper by Michael Porter in it, which was kind of exciting to see that, and then others who continue to publish even now. But we attempt to be a resource for everybody. It's interesting. We've grown from not being available online and only in print back in 2014 to now. We're getting over 90,000 downloads from our articles every year. And we don't publish a large number of articles per year. So a relatively smaller number of articles, and that's a lot of downloads. That's not just looks. We can also look at who's looked at the files or looked at the abstract, but the full downloads. And that's also just from our specific website, which our journals are, our articles are available in multiple other formats and areas as well. So our goal at JSBS is just to help people research, to facilitate quality research. And what we want to do today is, again, as Whitney mentioned, try to give an example of how you can utilize JSBS in your own research agenda as well as in your academic career. And we're going to focus on 3 specific things today that we hope will help you understand what JSBS is about and how you can connect with the journal and utilize this as one of your outlets for your research. So we're going to cover the state of the journal, where we are right now, what we've seen happen over the past few years of high growth, some general guidelines and tips for publishing in the journal, and then we'll give you kind of how the whole submission and review process works as well for those that don't know. And just up front, if you want to know where to go to get on the journal, it's jsbs.org is our website, and it's easily accessible there. When Whitney and I and the small team we had put together began looking at the future of the journal when we were taking this over in 2015, we looked at some options. We could publish the journal with a well-known publishing service, which, so many of the journals we publish with now are connected there, or we could focus on a self-publishing system. And it's interesting, over the past several years, while there's great benefits to both directions to go, we chose to go with a self-publishing format. And as we've grown the past several years, we continue to get contacted by publishers asking us to consider joining their portfolio, but to this point, we've remained completely open access and self-publishing. When we decided to do that, what ended up happening is we ended up having a lot of these things: flexibility and free access with no restrictions to researchers all around the world. And we didn't understand, I think, at the time, some of the implications of that. But interestingly, there is a huge push around the globe by universities, and that all university be pulled out and be accessible for individuals to access without having to pay. And as universities are increasingly seeing cuts in budgets, more and more decisions are being made as to whether to renew relationships with publishing companies, and that can limit the access of researchers to the work that they need to utilize as they develop their own papers, as well as sometimes the restriction on their own work. And I went out and looked, and there are so many articles, so many things out there where universities specifically are looking at open access as a solution for budgetary issues and other issues that they're facing in these trying times. And interestingly, it's not just universities that are trying to find access and create this more open, free access, but faculty are increasingly wanting their publications to be open access through gold type publishing agreements or in open access journals. And there was an article just a few years ago where these academics, a study was done by Springer Nature that indicated that open access books that they had specifically was their study were downloaded, discussed, cited, as the title says, much more than traditional books. And it's because of the access that everybody could reach the work rather than those who had to go through a university system where maybe the universities weren't providing that access to them. So it's interesting to see, while we've taken this route, we allow our researchers to share their work, to access it at any time, anywhere, with no cost. And it's been, I think, very beneficial for us. There are challenges with that. The cost associated with the publishing the journal all actually falls on my university, which is fine. We budgeted for that through the Turner School of Entrepreneurship. But it's what we're doing. With that being the case, we are somewhat limited in what we want to do and how fast we want to grow, but we are growing exponentially. Whitney, any thoughts on any of this?
No, just that over the past 3 years, even, we've seen an incredible number of jumps and submissions. And, just a few minutes ago, Bill was talking about the downloads. And for those of you who are at an applied colleges of business, that is something I've found that my dean really appreciates, is when I report the number of downloads that my paper has from JSBS. And that is a nice complement to other sources that have, impact factors and that sort of thing. But this shows that my work is actually being read and accessed.
Yeah, and it's great to see those numbers increasing. And again, when we took the journal in 2015, and while you may look at these numbers and say, well, that's not very impressive compared to some numbers of other journals, I want you to remember when we took the journal over, there was really no submissions and there was no papers in the pipeline. There was nothing going on. So what we've done has been great over these years. But in 2020, we published 3 issues with 23 articles. We have 4 issues already planned this year. We have 32 articles already in the queue for these issues, and we may add a few more to the final issue. In 2020, we had 234 submissions, which would indicate an acceptance rate of approximately 10%, because I think we can all divide 234 by the 23 to get that number. But actually, our true acceptance rate is actually at about 7.4%, because one of the issues that we published in 2020 was a special issue where the articles were not actually submitted through the journal. With that being said, while our acceptance rate is very low, I don't really consider us to be exclusive at all. We just look for good, solid, quality papers that meet the scope of the journal. Our site score from Scopus was 3.9 in 2020, and I'll mention what that was a few years ago to show you kind of the growth. And we have two special issues planned for this year. Again, when Whitney and I took the journal over in 2015, there was 4 of us that came on the journal to help facilitate what was going on. Our numbers of submissions continue to grow, and we have expanded our team greatly. So, we've gone from just a few of us in the United States as well into being a truly international group of professors and academicians who are working with the journal. And it's very exciting to see that our submissions are increasingly international in from where they're coming from and in their scope. And so the editorial team just continues to grow. And when Whitney was talking a while ago about the title of this, JSBS is more than just a one and done. One thing about the journal is that, we're not only looking for great papers, we're looking for people who can be reviewers. We're looking for people who can come on board and be editorial review board members. We're looking for individuals who are interested in joining us as a section editor or associate editors. We're looking for individuals who are interested in putting together special issues for us, and that's beginning to be a much bigger push for us. But there's a lot of opportunity for you to get involved beyond just in submitting a paper.
And I've definitely seen this happen where people submitted some papers. They were great papers. We invited them to review. They gave excellent reviews. We said, hey, would you be willing to review 4 papers or more a year? And you can join our editorial review board. And then they've just kept climbing through. And so it's a great opportunity to grow as a scholar where, in a journal that is really growing in prestige and that honestly, needs the help. And so it's really exciting to see that the way that this has evolved.
It's really grown. And just to let you see how the journal has grown, we're indexed in Scopus with a site score of 3.9 right now, which is great. I will say I looked at the Journal of Small Business Management. They're a 5.9. The JSBM continues to grow and be an excellent opportunity for research. We're at a 3.9. But just to put that in perspective, in 2016, we were at a 0.5. So this is a pretty significant growth track we're on right now. And while we had 23 papers published this last year, our expected is around 32 to 35 this year. We expect next year that we'll be up into the 40s and probably close to 50 with the same acceptance rate and same standards, et cetera. Some universities need to see an SJR score, but we're indexed in including the ABDC list, which is very important for a lot of individuals, and we're indexed as a scientific level 1 in the Norwegian Register, which are great indications of our quality as we continue to grow and develop and expand the journal. So now we just kind of want to cover, what does it take to get published? What does it take if I'm thinking about submitting a paper? What are some general guidelines and tips for publishing in JSBS? And I'm going to go ahead and right now tell you that I have completely borrowed this terminology from Naveen Danthu of the JBR. He did a presentation, and I've talked with him about this multiple times, and it just made sense, and it fits perfectly with what I think we need to see in good papers with the journal. So I just want to give him the credit for this. But one thing we see in a lot of papers is kind of that mystery novel approach, where somebody submits a paper and it's, as the editor-in-chief or as managing editor, the individuals who are making the initial decisions, even down to the section editors, sometimes it's hard to understand where the paper is going. And if I can't figure out where the paper is, and you keep surprising with these fantastic things that come up later and later, that's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for something that's going to supply the academic information and move us along. So, leaving something as a surprise till the end is not necessarily what we're looking for. So don't think about writing a mystery novel. Whitney, do you have any thoughts on that or the next point?
if we see that there's work to be done too, one thing I really like about us is that we take it seriously from the moment it's submitted, and our managing editors will provide you feedback even if it's desk rejected. That hopefully will help you as you move it forward. And so if you do have an onion paper or it is a mystery, we'll let you know that. And if we think the paper has promise, we'll often say, feel free once you make these changes to these key areas to submit it again later as a new submission for consideration.
Exactly. And also, one thing that we keep seeing over and over are papers that are specific to a region, and it's just kind of focusing on one thing at one place, and there's really not advancing of any theory or scholarly impact. And this is kind of a really good example of that. A study describing how consumers in India adopted a mobile payment system. It's going to inform us on how those consumers in India adopted a mobile payment system, but that's going to be about the extent of what it's going to do. There may be some practical application to that, but it's not really moving us forward. A better paper and a way to position your work would be a study that develops a model of consumer acceptance or resistance to technological advances. And that would be what you would want to indicate as your title, for example. Something like that, rather than a specific issue in India or something, for example. And then you can test your hypotheses in the model using that adoption of mobile payment systems in India, for example. So you've got to understand, when we're looking at the potential to make an impact on the readership, which are going to be scholars from around the world, make sure that you're focusing on the scholar aspect, not just the study itself. Focusing on the study is not the goal. The study is there to support what your paper is really all about. So, and it's interesting, we also get a lot of papers that indicate that this is useful because it is a gap that currently exists in the literature. Where I see this a lot is in research that is very mature. All the work basically has been done. The work that's been done has helped to develop theories and work in other areas. And I'm not going to say that we've moved on from those areas, but suddenly there's some gap that exists or that somebody has pointed out that no one has looked at. Also, in some of the more current topics and theories, there may be something that somebody hasn't tested. But what we find is just having a gap does not mean that it's going to provide a impact or any kind of movement as far as the academic research goes. Okay, you can have a gap that doesn't really. It might be a gap that no one cares about. I hate to say that, but it could be a gap that no one cares about. And sadly, we see this often. Now, if there are some really good implications for this, that's going to need to be indicated pretty quickly in the paper up front and be well supported in your research. But just a gap in itself does not necessarily qualify as the reason for a paper, especially in an applied journal such as JSBS.
And just to build on what you were saying, Bill, the number one thing I get for feedback for papers that I see consistently, and that can eliminate both this issue and the prior one. Is that your paper really is motivated by theory. Your variable selection is based on that theory. And if you're good at telling that story, then you can identify what's missing in the literature without just filling a gap. And you can really make that scholarly impact or contribution. And so that's really, we're looking for a good solid basis for a study and can give you feedback. But if you have that excellent theory story woven throughout your paper, and that informed your research questions, and that informed your variable selection, and then you have solid implications, then we can work from there.
Exactly. And really, from our journal, when we think about the mission of the journal, it's, we are an applied research journal. So it's not just the applied, but it's the research aspect. And the manuscript should be written with a small business entrepreneur, educator, small business consultant, researcher in mind. And, it's interesting, we just got the question, conceptual, empirically based, I'm going to say qualitative and quantitative papers are all very much encouraged. We see a lot of the qualitative papers with a lot of theory development and building being submitted more and more, and so those are perfectly acceptable. And we have a body of reviewers and individuals who are really good and experts in qualitative papers to help review those and give you some feedback that will be very beneficial. It's also exciting to see we've got a lot of reviewers and individuals on our team who are good with some more, what I would say, more recent methodologies as well. So much is great is being done in FSQCA, for example, really moving the field along. And we've got more and more papers being published with some of these other areas of analyses. And so those are great. But ultimately, they have to have an applied focus. So while a literature review is excellent, and we're never going to say don't utilize a literature review to start with the development of your paper, or to start with the how you're putting this together. But sometimes starting with an issue that the practice is facing can help to focus that to the applied implications, applied focus that we have as a journal. So what do we want when we're looking at the what we want from your paper? An introduction that tells us what you're doing, why it's important, your main findings, and your contribution. There's a lot of papers out there that really kind of wait till the end to tell you what the contribution of the paper is, but we like to see that up front so we know where we're going with this paper. And really, ideas and data aren't adequate alone. We need to have a contribution. That applied contribution really is what kind of sets us apart and really where our purpose is. I would say that when you do your literature, if you'll use review table or literature review table, it can help to kind of map out where your paper is going. But this next thing is kind of a big issue. I would highly recommend using some sort of professional proofreaders or technical editors to improve your paper if this could be an issue to you. The saddest thing that we have to do is when we get a paper in and it probably is fantastic and it's just we just can't read it and it's too difficult to get through it. As far as our journal goes, we're very much encouraging to co-authors, but those implications are really important for us. And one thing I want to just suggest, and this is in general with any paper that you submit to any journal, I would target that journal. I would read through those articles. Actually, Whitney, why don't you talk about that a minute? This is one of Whitney's kind of big keys.
It is. Something that is so impressive when you get a paper is that it's clear that the authors have read papers in your journal. They structure the paper. It doesn't have to look like a copy edit or like a proof, but if it has the same types of sections that our articles typically have, if it is certain to include practical implications, those things all show that you have, and if it cites papers from the journal that are relevant, it shows that you've done your homework and that this was truly an intended target, not just something that was rejected from somewhere else that you're resubmitting. And this goes for all the journals I review for that when it looks like folks have done their homework, it's like when students follow instructions, right? It automatically puts us in the frame of mind like this person's doing a nice job so far. So that's something we always look for and provide recommendations if it looks like the people haven't read our articles. Please, make sure you're reading relevant work. Here's some suggestions we have for you. And then those papers may also be worthy of, supporting your research work as sites.
Yeah, it's just so important. Just target JSBS, know the papers out there. And somebody just asked the question, about publishing charges, et cetera. There is no charges for submitting, no charges for publication. There's no publication fee at all. There's no charge to access the journal. It's not behind any kind of a paywall of any sort. When you publish in the journal, you can have access to even if you don't publish in the journal, you have access to all of our articles at any time. And again, there's just no charge there. So really, there's no excuse to not look at the journal and see what kinds of papers are out there to utilize for your particular journal. And I'll go ahead and Colette asked a question: do we accept papers on entrepreneurship education? And we do, but we don't publish pedagogical pieces specifically. Okay, so and there's a lot of other types of educational articles that you can publish, but not in just research or in teaching methods, for example. Okay, so other than that, we're very open. When it comes to, and if I'm missing any questions along the way there, Whitney, if you wouldn't mind just jumping in too. But when it comes to a desk reject, just the reason that you're going to get a desk reject is if it just clearly is not a fit with JSBS. If the paper is not about entrepreneurship, small business with kind of a strategy positioning, and by the way, just about everything can have a strategy positioning, so that's not difficult. But if it's completely out of the realm of that, it's clear that it's not going to move on to our reviewers. If the contribution is minimal, or if it's not, as I mentioned earlier, the scholarly impact, if it's so focused on one thing and that study, and really it's not focused on the research topic in general, then that's a problem, and that goes with the generalizability issues. And then, of course, any fatal flaws that might come along could cause problems as well. I don't know what just happened to the slides. I'll move back here. When any thoughts on that, on the desk reject or the next
those
slide?
are generally the thing we were looking at. Oftentimes, or we'll have like a single case study on a particular business in a country. And that's something that automatically just, it doesn't have enough cases to be generalizable or that sort of thing. And so those are often reasons that that will desk reject something. Plus, we just don't want to waste your time. We know that your academic time spending things in review is valuable. And so we work really hard to try to turn things around in a reasonable time frame. And if we know that there's no way that this paper is going to come through without major revisions in the review process, we may desk reject it early, give you some good feedback, and then say you can submit it later as a new submission when we think it will have more likelihood of making it through the review process, because we don't want to tie 6 weeks of your time up and you get the same outcome. So that's one thing I'm really proud of with the journal, is that we try really hard to be respectful of people's time and academic energy, because we know that most people, the clock is ticking. And so we work to try to make sure that that we respect that for you and get you quick, fairly reasonable timeframe decisions. And if it's not going to make it through, we let you know that so that you can do the things you need to in order to get it through here or somewhere else.
So all the submissions are done through jsbs.org. You'll just need to go online, and there's a link to start a new submission. You will go through just a small variety of questions. You'll upload your paper. Make sure you upload a version without your author information, of course, as normal for any other journal. And then sometimes there are some special issues where the submission is going to be handled outside of the jsbs.org site. But that's where most of the submissions are taken care of. And again, I just want to say no charge for submission, publication, access, et cetera. There's no collect no paper length on the papers, so that's not an issue. And I'll kind of go through the process, and maybe this will answer some of the next questions. So the article initially is submitted, and it's quickly evaluated to determine the fit with the journal. And then it's going to be given a decision of going to review or a desk reject. And then they're transferred to a section editor who oversees the review process. So the articles then need to have at least 2 reviews from reviewers to receive a decision of either revise and resubmit or reject. These reviews are done by editorial review board members or ad hoc reviewers, and we give the reviewers 4 weeks to complete the review. As soon as that review is completed, we get back to you as quickly as we can. Now, I'm going to be very honest and tell you that getting reviewers to review papers is very, very difficult sometimes. As at JSBS, I can tell you we give them 4 weeks, but that doesn't mean they always do that. And there are instances where we are looking for other reviewers. Somebody said they're going to do it, and they haven't done it. I will tell you, I had a paper that was just returned to me not very long ago from another journal that needed 2 reviews, and they had 15 reviewers before they finally got 2 reviewers to complete that. So while we want to have a decision back to you within about 5 weeks of either a revise and resubmit or reject, I can't promise you that, and ultimately it falls to the making sure our reviewers are doing a good job and getting those reviews done. I think this is every journal's problem. I wish I could solve this. I'm with JSBS, I'm also associate editor for a few other journals, and I can tell you it's the exact same issue at every journal. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, this is our number one issue. And I think the number one issue, as Bill said, for most journals, and especially during the pandemic, because people have so many competing priorities. If you have kids at home, it's harder to get this stuff done and that sort of thing. So, but what I would ask too is, as soon as you get a request, assess whether it's this journal or another journal to review for them, assess whether or not you have the bandwidth, and then immediately decline or accept it, so that if you're unable to do it, the journal can move on to the next person, because that just speeds the process up. If you have a 1 week deadline and you wait the full week and decline, and then another person gets it and they wait another week to decline, pretty soon you're several weeks out and still don't have a reviewer for the submission. So it's really helpful, even if you can't do it, just to decline as quickly as possible so we can put somebody else on it.
Yeah, that's the issue. And I guess this is just a general advice. If you're not super familiar with reviewing, you're not going to make anybody mad by declining to do a review. Just let them know ASAP, and they'll be just fine with that. So that's kind of the process. We aim for 5 to 6 weeks for an initial for the R&R or reviewed decision on that, but that doesn't always happen. But ultimately, that's kind of what we have. So how can we be of help to you? We hope that you consider JSBS, but what other questions do you have that you would like to ask that we haven't covered, that we could do so at this point? And we'll do our best to answer those. And I think you can ask live via your mic or on the chat.
So Victor just asked if we would share hot topics that we're interested in. And Bill, if you want to start, then I can build on it.
I would say some of the basically anything with strategy right now in small business and entrepreneurship is pretty exciting. There's a lot of movement there, but some of the topics are, I don't know. There's such a wide variety. I would say some of the things that are happening right now are maybe some of these areas that we've looked at, that we're looking at through the lens of a new analysis. Really, that's probably not the answer you're wanting, but people that are utilizing some FSQCA to see different results for some of the things we've been looking at for a while, as well as the PLS-SEM stuff as well. So that would be, I can't think of anything specifically right now.
We have some special issues coming up. I know one's in rural entrepreneurship, in rural small business. That's something that seems to be garnering a lot of traction from different areas, and schools are starting to pay a lot more attention to it. I know that specifically, I've seen a lot of interest in HR issues in small business. Like, they've been explored a great deal in the larger business context, but in SMEs, the problems are exceptionally contextual. And so understanding like human resources and human capital strategy for employees and retention and turnover, those sorts of things are really interesting in the small business context, and as well as like antecedents to that. So those are some areas that we've seen a lot of interest. Small business social responsibility, or CSR, seems to be gaining some traction, and are some areas that folks have done some work, but that there's a lot more work to be done, and how that affects employee perceptions and identity and commitment to the firm. All of those things are, I think, really ripe topics in the small business arena.
And right now is a great time to start working on papers having to do with crisis and small business and entrepreneurship, as far as directions and things such as marketing and how it's affecting the performance, for example. That's going to be a big key over the next few years. What we saw was a huge jump in COVID papers. And while the first few were interesting, now COVID is a bit specific. And I think where instead it's going to go, and this is just the future. I wouldn't say we're seeing these papers yet, but crisis management in entrepreneurial firms and small businesses, et cetera. And how can we assess that going forward? So there's going to be the need for, how do we assess that? How do we assess who did it right, who did it wrong, what theories are going to develop as a result of this? So I would say that would be the future, if that would make sense.
Yeah, and one of our associate editors, Maria Marshall, has done work on disaster and recovery in small business. And so, there's some interesting early work that tried to tap into that, especially after Hurricane Katrina, but so much more work to be done after the pandemic. I would also say, if we just look practically at what's going on in the world, supply chain issues are an incredible, real life problem with small businesses right now. And I would encourage you to join hands with your operations colleagues and perhaps find ways to apply what they're working on to the small business context. The nice thing is that most of our topics can bring in other colleagues that you may have in other areas that may not be entrepreneurship researchers, but allow you to join forces and bring really interesting questions that are being asked in the larger business context to small business, and targeting those populations specifically.
Yeah, and Victor asked about startups. I would say we're probably a good half or more on entrepreneurial startups. So that would be a huge portion of what we do. While we utilize the definition of 500 employees, basically the SBA definition, we are also open to other definitions from around the world, because we are very much not just the U.S. So we have a lot of papers on SMEs, micro organizations, and we're also corporate entrepreneurship is also another big topic that we look at as well. So those are all pretty big things that we examine on a regular basis. These are great questions, by the way. Yeah, it's great to think about, what is it we actually do? Because sometimes we get so busy just doing it, we forget about some of the things that we are doing. So yeah, and it's exciting because a lot of our papers and a lot of the research right now is coming from joint research with co-authors from multiple countries. And so that's always neat to see the different perspectives in those papers as they are published. And as far as the special issues forthcoming, right now we had 2 that are coming up. Those are rural entrepreneurship but that one's now closed, and a one on marketing and family businesses, and that one's closed. So we have a one on innovation that's part of the See It conference in this coming summer on basically innovation in small business entrepreneurship. And that's all that we have planned specifically coming up. And yeah, anybody can submit to the journal from any country. We have submissions and we have papers from everywhere on a regular basis. And again, that's one big change that Whitney and I focused on when we came, is turning this into a truly international journal. So not only do we have people from all over the world submitting, we have people from all over the world who are on our editorial review board and our editorial team, and our reviewers also are from all over the world. And I want to encourage you, if you have not done so, go out to our website at jsbs.org and sign up and become a reviewer. That's a great way to get started. If you sign up to be a reviewer as a result of this, if you would shoot me an email. I'm going to put my email address on here. And if you would shoot me an email and just say, hey, I signed up to be a reviewer, and let me connect with you and help you, maybe get started as a reviewer. And also, and then I can give you any advice and help moving forward as you decide to publish your papers or submit your papers. And also, we do have our numbers are increasing dramatically. I would guess we're probably on track to have while we had 234 submissions in 2020, my guess is we're probably going to have about 300 submissions in 2021. But if you have a paper that you are questioning, would this be a fit? I'm always willing to take a look at it before you submit it. Now, please don't send me every paper thinking it's going to get you brownie points or something. It doesn't work like that. I'll just tell you, hey, this looks good or not, to give you some thoughts on it, or maybe on how you might want to reposition before you submit it. And another question, is it published quarterly? Right now it's being published 4 times a year this year. We're probably going to be increasing that year over year, though, just because of the growth of the journal. Any other questions or comments? Anything at all?
Rick asked if we have an editorial calendar available for 2021-2022.
We do, but you need to contact me for that. Happy to help with that. All right, anything else? Well, I just want to say, on behalf of Bradley University and the Journal of Small Business Strategy, thank you for joining us. I do want to just say it has been so great working with Whitney these past several years. Whitney has gotten busier and busier at her university. So she's still very involved, and actually is one of our advisors for the journal moving forward. So she continues to give input. Not only does she serve on the editorial review board, she's also an advisor on direction and strategy for the journal. So it's very excited to work with her. But I just want to say thank you for coming. It's been great having you here and sharing with you. And again, I gave you my email address. I'm always happy to hear from you, as I'm sure Whitney is as well. Whitney, any last thoughts?
No, and thanks to Bill. This was a fantastic presentation. You did a great job heading it up. And we thank you for being here and taking the time to listen, to learn more about our journal. And it truly is an opportunity to grow both your publication trajectory and to find ways to get involved as service and professional service become more important in your career. And so please jump in. We would love to have you be a part of our journal and to find ways to get you involved.
And I'm sorry, I want to add one more thing, because one person mentioned, thanks for the important and impactful session. I would say if you have anything on social impact, what a great topic. I should have mentioned that earlier and I didn't. But again, thank you all for being here. And we've really enjoyed the time. Appreciate USASBE and the opportunity to share about what we think is a really great, strong, exciting journal to be a part of. So.